Hey, hey, hey. Happy Wednesday. Come on in. Pull up a chair. The Gaming Gang Dispatch is in the air. Howdy, gang, and welcome once again to the Duct Tape Studios. I'm Jeff McAleer, your host, here at the Gaming Gang Dispatch, brought to you by, amazingly enough, GamingGang.com, of which I happen to be the founder and editor-in-chief. Welcome aboard. Tonight is Wednesday, March 8th, 2023. This is live stream 896. Closing in on episode 900. So welcome aboard. If you're not familiar with how this show works, let me point out, super casual. Just hanging out, talking about the latest in tabletop gaming news. And then we will take a look at a tabletop game. So tonight is going to be a War Game Wednesday. We are going to be diving on into Inferno from GMT Games. So we will be diving in here in just a bit. But as I mentioned, super casual. We are certainly not engaging in rocket surgery by any stretch of the imagination. So do want to mention, though, since this is a live stream, if you are tuning in live, it's going to be probably about 35, maybe 40 minutes before we jump on into Inferno. So if you're hanging out watching live, kick your feet up, relax. It's hump day, halfway to the weekend. So take it easy on yourself. Enjoy. But if you happen to be watching this 30 minutes or more after the stream ends, and you just happen to be a very impatient type, and you just can't get your mind off of Inferno, there will be timestamps, so you can just click on those, jump right past the news if you'd like. Although I've got some really cool news tonight. I usually have some pretty cool news. But there will be timestamps. They are located in the show notes, or depending on what device you happen to be using to watch this, those timestamps might be right there in the timeline in front of you. So you can use that as well. Of course, when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, don't forget, visit thegaminggang.com for all the latest in tabletop gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more that you won't find here on the YouTube channel. You know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. Lastly, it's a live stream, so that means there is chat available. Something that subscribers get to enjoy while they're hanging out waiting for the first looks and the unboxings. But do want to mention, you must be a subscriber in order to take part in chat, and you must be a subscriber for at least 48 hours before you can take part in chat. It's just some of the ways I keep some of the more unusual commenters at bay. But if you want to say howdy, maybe you've got a question, a comment, maybe there's something about Inferno you want a closer look at, by all means, chime in. I will do my best to respond. Looks like we've got chat off and running already. First out the gate tonight is the Motor City Madman. That's right, the Madman's with us. He is one of our chat moderators, as is Flaming Huron, joining us from across the pond. He is also one of our chat moderators. Veteran Graybalox, John Muscola, Shaz is with us, Roger Prodome, and I think that's everybody right now. So, welcome everybody. Chat is off and running already. So let's jump right on into the news, because Funko Games has revealed Disney animated It's going to be arriving this spring, and here is what little I know. Work together like the team at the famous Walt Disney Animation Studios to create movie magic. Produce 5 classic Disney films using detailed background art, vibrant paint colors, and lively sound to bring cherished stories to life on the screen. But watch out, the infamous villains of your feature films will rush your deadlines and create all the calamity they can. As a team, you'll use the strengths of the animation studio: heart, focus, inspiration, grit, teamwork, and anti-Semitism. Yeah, I'm just adding that last one in there. To vanquish the villains and finish your film in time. Cooperative gameplay integrates novel mechanics and unique player powers. Stunning components include full-color player boards, custom wooden tokens, and 15 transparent cell cards. Explore the storied history of the Disney Animation Studios with 5 classic films. Develop sound, ink and paint, and background art, plus a bit of magic to bring your films to life. Disney Animated will be for 2 to 4 players, ages 10 and up. It'll play in around 20 minutes per player. I know there are some outlets out there saying that this game plays in 20 minutes. It does not. It is 20 minutes per player, and I have that directly from Funko Games. It's going to carry an MSRP of $34.99 when it arrives sometime this spring. So yes, I know, I threw the anti-Semitism thing in there because Uncle Walt. I didn't necessarily mean that everybody who worked for the studio was back in the day. Gotta say, I will tell you right now, my best friend Elliot Miller will be running out and buying this game. He is a huge Disney fan, and this is going to be right up his alley. So I thought it looked kind of interesting, and there are a couple of Disney games coming from Funko. This looks to be more aimed at, I guess we'll say, more mature gamers. It's not a kid's game. It's not designed just for small kids, which I believe the other Disney release is going to be from Funko Games. So on a side note, I don't know how many of you out there used to visit, say, Disneyland or Disney World way back in the day, let's say late 70s-ish. But I remember when you used to be able to go to Disney World, and in one of the gift shops, they sold animation cells, and they practically gave them away. They were so dirt cheap. And I wish as kids, because we used to go every spring, because my uncle lived in Boca Raton, so we would go down there for our spring break, or, you know, not that kids in grammar school really have a spring break, but the spring holiday. And we used to always go to Disney World, and I'll never forget. I remember I'd see them, and they were like 10, maybe 15 bucks for the animation cells, and I don't know. So, Madman has mentioned something about Fun Again Games. We can talk about this when we get to the random musings portion of the show, because I had just heard about this like 5 minutes before I started the stream. So I haven't even really had an opportunity to take a peek. But the funny thing is, Fun Again Games has closed up online before. So this is not the first time they have done this. So, in fact, I was kind of surprised that they came back with an online presence, although I do believe it is different owners than previously. I don't think, I might be wrong, but I don't think it's Rick Suede and his family who own Fun Again, because I'm pretty sure they don't own Eagle Griffin anymore either. All right. Anyway, once again, this is Disney Animated. Looks pretty cool, and it will arrive this spring. So Zorak Zoran 1 is stopping on by in chat for just a few moments. Well, thank you very much for swinging on in. Kathy Evans and Kevin R. Smith are here in chat. Hopefully they're going to hang out for more than just a few minutes. So welcome aboard. On to the next news piece. Now available from Fantasy Flight Games is Star Wars The Deck Building Game. Here's the deets. The Rebel Alliance fights valiantly against the tyranny of the Galactic Empire. Each new victory brings the Rebels hope. New hope, possibly? And each heroic sacrifice strengthens their resolve. Still, the Empire's resources are vast, and the firepower of its Empire Navy is unmatched. Empire Navy? I don't know if I recall hearing it referred to like that. With neither side willing to accept defeat, their war rages across the galaxy. In Star Wars The Deck Building Game, a head-to-head game for 2 players, the galaxy-spanning war between the Galactic Empire and the Rebel Alliance comes alive on your tabletop. In this easy-to-learn game, you and your opponent each choose a side, playing as either the Empire or the Rebels, and as the game progresses, you both strengthen the power of your starting decks and work to destroy each other's bases. First player to destroy 3 of their opponent's bases wins. In more detail, each player starts with a unique 10-card deck, with 7 of those cards providing only resources to acquire new cards. 6 cards from a Galaxy deck are always on display, with Rebel cards facing the Rebel player, Empire cards, the Empire player, and neutral cards turned sideways. You can spend resources to acquire cards in the Galaxy row that don't belong to the opponent, and you can use attack power to take out cards that do belong to them, gaining a reward in the process. Each player starts with a base that lacks abilities, Dantooine for the Rebels, and Lothal for the Empire. Dantooine, they're on Dantooine. Liar! That's not where they were. And when that base is destroyed, you get to choose a replacement from your base deck, with each base having a special ability. How many times do you want to say base there? Choose wisely to counter your opponent's plans. In addition to having special abilities, capital ships absorb damage meant for your base. Players also fight for control of a force track to gain additional resources or make use of, if the force is with you, abilities on their cards. Star Wars The Deck Building Game is for 2 players, ages 14 and up, plays in around 30 minutes, does carry an MSRP of $37.99. Intriguing. Yes, I know this was announced quite a while back. And I know there's already a Star Wars living card game from Fantasy Flight Games, so I don't know, to be honest, I don't even know if they still produce the living card game. I don't know. I got to be honest. I don't follow Fantasy Flight Games that much anymore after the folks I had connections with left, and Asmodee, of course, took over. And Asmodee is not very easy to work with as a press outlet. They're not very forthcoming usually. So Kevin says it was the Imperial Navy and all the old EU books. That's what I was thinking too. It's the Imperial Navy, not Empire Navy. I've never heard it called the Empire Navy. Veteran Grayblock says, nah, the old one's been gone for years. Coco B is lurking, by the way. Welcome, Coco B. Anyway, I have heard through the grapevine this is very similar in gameplay to Star Realms. So there is that. Funny enough, speaking of Star Realms, I mention it all the time. I like Hero Realms better, and I don't know why. It's like, I think maybe it's because Star Realms has kind of that sort of generic-ish science fiction look to it. And the whole destroying bases rebuilding bases, destroying bases, rebuilding the same base over and over, or same bases, I guess I will say, over and over, seems odd too. But I do like Hero Realms quite a bit, even though Hero Realms art style is a little bit generic as well. So, not to be outlurked, Sarah D is with us as well tonight. All right, let's talk about some role-playing game news, because pre-orders have begun for the Tome of Beasts 1 2023 edition. Here's the latest from our friends over at Kobold Press. Dungeon Master. A collection of hundreds of eyes floats down the corridor toward you, dripping caustic fluid that sizzles when it hits the ground. What do you do? Player. I retire and become a farmer. Whether you need dungeon vermin or world-shaking villains, the Tome of Beasts 1 2023 edition has it. This book presents more than 400 foes suitable for any campaign setting, from tiny drakes and peculiar spiders to demon lords and ancient dragons. Tome of Beasts 1 2023 edition introduces new foes and upgrades monsters that originally appeared in Tome of Beasts, including updates to include errata and streamlined mechanics, 11 new creatures like the Ash Walker. I said Ash Walker. Mine's out of the gutters. Plane Watcher and the Ancient Cave Dragon. Expanded tables by creature type and terrain. New monster art, and much more. Give your players encounters they won't soon forget. Now, easier to run than ever. Right now, you can pre-order this hardcover for $59.99. I believe that includes the PDF. And I think there is a limited edition that's got a different cover to it. I think that one's $79.99. Or if you want, you can grab the PDF for $29.99. And the expected delivery is this June. I have to be very honest and say that I do not have the first Tome of Beasts. So I'm actually very happy to see this coming out, because it'll complete my collection. Because I do have Tome of Beasts 2 and Tome of Beasts 3 that were sent by the fine folks over at Kobold Press. But I've never had Tome of Beasts 1. So, or actually, it wasn't called Tome of Beasts 1. It was just Tome of Beasts. So very cool. Very nice. I will be looking forward to, fingers crossed, having an opportunity to check this out and share it with you as well when it arrives this spring. Speaking of bestiaries, the Dungeon Denizens Kickstarter has passed the $250,000 funding mark, and it is just on the cusp of the $300,000 funding mark. Here's a scoop from Goodman Games. A massive tome of monsters, benevolent and malign. Herein, the modern game master shall find a diverse collection of monsters suitable for any 5th edition or DCC campaign. This book contains more than 500 monsters. 300 monsters are culled from almost 20 years of Goodman Games products, updated to the modern version of the world's most popular role-playing game and dungeon crawl classics. Another 200 plus monsters are brand new, never before published creatures, ready to be unleashed on your unsuspecting players. This collection contains not just inhabitants of dank, twisting underground passages, but includes foul beasts that hide in the dark boughs of the forest, hardy creatures that wander the windswept dunes of the sandy wastes, seen behemoths that plunge into the watery depths of the ocean, and strange outsiders that traipse through planar worlds, just to name a few. But that's not all. Dungeon Denizens includes an assortment of aberrations, including the Abelar, the Nagalisk, and the Pool Lurker. It's just a pervert who hangs out at the pool. A crowd of constructs, including new golems and animated objects, plus the Flawless Effigy and the Bronze Reaper. Don't fear the Bronze Reaper. A horde of humanoids, including the Degenerate Shehel, the Savage Serpentine Zopololioni. I didn't come anywhere close to getting that one right. And the Carapace-clad Clanklin. That's Clacklin, I should say. Many entries include variant leaders and spellcasters ready to challenge your players with cunning tactics. I've got a cunning tactic, me lord. Or thoughtful interaction. Multitude of monstrosities such as the Conflagration Worm and the Trollhound. A frenzy of fiends such as the Fetch Demon and the Inferno Cat, as well as demon lords, including Malatok and Babagbubzil. Pretty crazy. Kevin says, and the fearsome ice-dwelling Zamboni. All the horrors. Of course, we get these demon lords plus their faithful servants. There's also a barrage of beasts, many suitable as familiars, animal companions, or druidic wild shape options. There's even a plethora of plant and plant-like creatures, such as the Bloodthorn Vine and the Grove King Hellthorn. There is a short Kickstarter video. It's just over a minute long, which is going to go into a little more detail, but more importantly, share far more images of the creatures in Dungeon Denizens. So let's take a peek. You can reserve a copy of Dungeon Denizens for 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons in hardcover with PDF for a $59 pledge, or you can get the Dungeon Crawl Classics edition with PDF for $10 less. You can also score the PDF of either edition alone for a $30 pledge through March 21st. The expected delivery is July of next year. So yes, loads and loads of monsters. I gotta say, it's kind of cool that they're going to compile, 300 monsters from almost 20 years of Goodman Games releases. So we're not just talking about the Dungeon Crawl Classics that are designed for Dungeon Crawl Classics. We're probably even looking at the original Dungeon Crawl Classics, which was for, I think when it first rolled out, I think it was for 3.5 D&D, and then 4. And then, of course, there's 5th edition Fantasy, which are adventures that Goodman Games releases for 5e. Gonna take a guess, we've got some monsters from that as well. So, pretty sweet, pretty nice. So something I want to mention here is the covers of the books have kind of changed around. So the image you're looking at right now, that is the Dungeon Crawl Classics cover. It's indicated as 5e there, so that is not correct. And there are a bunch of add-ons. And one of those add-ons is a 2-page dungeon encounter book. It's got the artwork from Errol Otis, which you were just looking at right there. So that is actually the cover for that. It is not a cover for Dungeon Denizens. And then if you look here on the left, that is the cover now for 5e. And I wish I could have found an image like you're looking at now for that cover. Searched all over. I searched for a half hour online. Could not find anything. In fact, the image that you saw with the 3 covers, because there's also like a limited edition cover for each of the versions, that had actually the clearest look at the new 5e cover. And yes, I am going to do my best to try to talk to Goodman Games at GaryCon, because I believe that they are exhibitors and they run a lot of people associated with Dungeon Crawl Classics, and Goodman Games are at GaryCon. So I'm gonna try. You know me, I would love to get on board with Goodman Games, but I don't know. Maybe they just don't like me. Maybe that's what it is. They're just like, we don't like this guy. All right, on to my final news piece. The latest issue of the Dungeons & Dragons magazine D12 Monthly has arrived from Yum DM. Here's the skinny. Issue 21 is all about the hills and mountains. It features articles on adventuring in those terrains, the monsters that dwell within, random encounter tables, another adventure location, and much more. Issue 21 is jam-packed with a lot of content and contains the following feature articles. Peaks and valleys, how hills and mountains form. Great, simple to understand information to help your world-building efforts. Slopes and ropes, adventuring in the mountains, survival, hazards, and equipment. Of earth and wind, no mention of fire. It is alternative lore for giants. Dark and gloomy, multiple tables to help you figure out what's in the cave. Horrors abound. 3 new monsters. The Lost Mine of Akhtar, which is a new adventure location, and much more. This 24-page PDF is available absolutely free for download. Yes. Very nice. Very nice. So I mentioned this is for 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons, but I do believe, and I could be wrong, but I do believe it is kind of from an old school mindset. Pretty sure it is kind of a bit of like OSR adjacent. I wouldn't say it's OSR, but it does, I believe, have an old school mindset. Flaming Huron says, who could not like you, Jeff? Well, there have been many people over the years. Actually, some companies don't like me because I don't give everything that comes across a big thumbs up. It is a fact. There are some companies out there, some folks associated, I guess we'll say, with companies out there who do not like me because I don't just give a rubber stamp approval to everything that I take a look at. So I have gotten emails from people, from companies saying I'm overly critical. Personally, I don't see it that way, but yeah, that's how they feel. That's okay. I don't necessarily have to take a look at their games and things like that. Anyway, do want to point out that you can pick up, in fact, any of the issues of D12 Monthly at yumdm.com, absolutely free. Also available over at Drive-Thru RPG, but I don't think issue 21 is up there yet. So I think they're up to like issue 20, which off the top of my head, I think it's like a desert issue, something along those lines. All right, so that is it for the news tonight. I do see that Quantum Phase Dragon stopped on in and mentioned that they are now engaged to be married. Congratulations. Very nice. Very cool. Even though we only talk about gaming in chat. Just kidding. Very nice. Congratulations. Notice some folks in chat were offering their congratulations, not condolences. Congratulations. All right, so I was just talking about drive-through RPG there for a second. Don't forget, the Gaming Gang, thus the Dispatch, is affiliated with the One Bookshelf sites. So if you are going to visit, say, Drive-Through RPG or Dungeon Masters Guild or Storyteller's Vault, what have you, please stop by thegaminggang.com. First, click on one of our banner ads. That way, if you happen to make a purchase, I get a small portion of that sale. All those nickels, dimes, and quarters really do go a long way to keeping thegaminggang.com around. Also, if you like this video, besides just giving it a thumbs up, you're gonna do that, right? If you like the video, if you dig the channel, if you find thegaminggang.com to be a valuable resource, hell, if you just like what we do, by all means, please stop by paypal.me/thegaminggang, and you can make a small donation, such as the Madman recently did, and it was not a small donation. Thank you, Madman. See, you get a shout out too. You make a donation, get a shout out multiple times, depending on the size of the donation. Anyway, thankfully, there are a lot of people out there who do use the drive-through RPG banner ads, as well as stop by paypal.me/thegaminggang. So thank you very much, everybody, for doing that. All right, so let me grab a quick sip here. So the Madman had pointed out that Funko Games is closing up their online retail division, and I had just heard it. In fact, somebody had messaged me on Facebook about it, and it was like 5 minutes before I started the stream, so I have not even really taken a look. But the Madman's saying they're doing a liquidation sale. And they do have a couple of brick and mortar stores in Oregon. I think one's in Portland. I think the other's in Eugene. So they're going to stay in business, according to the Madman. Now, I actually have a friend. I have somebody who used to be a correspondent for the Gaming Gang who, last I heard, works for Fun Again. And he didn't come in for last year's Gen Con, but he came in for the year prior to that because Fun Again has, I guess, they have a warehouse in Indiana, just outside, I think it's just outside Indianapolis. And he was actually running product to exhibitors at Gen Con from the warehouse. So I don't know what the deal is as far as, because Fun Again had been doing fulfillment. So they'd been doing fulfillment, and then they also had their online store. So Flaming Heron says, damn, Portland, haven't heard good things about there, considering Walmart's pulling out. That I'm not familiar with. Madman says the brick and mortar stores are in Ashland and Eugene. I think Ashland is a suburb of Portland. And my pal, I want to say, is at the Eugene store. So I have not had an opportunity. Like I said, this was just like 5 minutes before I started the stream. So I will probably take a look to see what they might have. I mean, it's not like they're going out of business. So, but they are going to be getting rid of a lot of stock, is what I would think, right? Speaking of, I don't know how many of you actually saw this. I want to say this was reported last week, but Funko is taking a bath. I was like, holy cow. I guess the bottom has fallen out on Funko collectibles, which I'll be the first to admit, when I went to Comic-Con in San Diego last year, I actually had an opportunity to go and pick up the Funko exclusives, which is very difficult to do. It's almost like a lottery system. And being a press outlet does not get you any other, doesn't get you any additional like pulls in the lottery. You're not getting extra tickets or anything like that. Although I must admit, Funko did put together a very nice swag bag last year for press outlets, which had some of the exclusives from San Diego Comic-Con, but selling those actually paid for my trip. And it wasn't like I had tons and tons of them. I didn't buy like multiples. And keeping in mind, my brother and my best friend Elliot both wanted some Funko stuff too. So I think all in all, I ended up with 14. And then I actually kept some. So I do have my Ted Lasso behind us and my Peacekeeper behind me. Those were both exclusives for Comic-Con. But yeah, I guess the bottom has dropped out and Funko has so much stock that they're thinking of simply destroying it. I was like, what? They're thinking of destroying all this excess stock. And to me, I would think, now this is just myself, right? This is just my idea here. I would think, wouldn't they be better served if they were going to destroy that product? Why not just give it to comic book stores, which are the bread and butter, for the most part, for Funko? And yes, I know Walmart sells them and various different, Target has exclusives and Walgreens has exclusives and things like that. But still, it's the comic stores and game stores, because I have seen plenty of game stores that carry pops. But I would think, wouldn't they be better served to give those to the retailers to just sell and make, even if they were marked down, help those retailers out? Don't know. I don't know. So Madman says several years ago they sold some D&D minis, and that paid for the Gen Con trip. So were those Grenadier miniatures by any chance? Just speaking of miniatures, I just saw, I popped onto eBay because I was kind of considering picking up Baseball Highlights 2045. Although I've only heard it's kind of like okay, but it's a baseball game and I have a thing for baseball games. And I was on eBay and it was kind of funny. I ran across the old Traveler miniatures, the GDW Traveler miniatures. Somebody was selling the aliens, which I think was like a dozen. But I remember those miniatures were small. I think they were even a little smaller than 15 millimeter. They weren't 6 millimeter. They weren't that tiny. But I was like, holy cow. And I think they wanted $50 for them. I was like, huh. So Flaming Heron says, mind you, companies throw out food at times, which is past the expiration date. Oh, yeah, sure. They do it all the time. that kind of pisses me off. And I get it. I understand certain things you can't donate to shelters and things like that, especially when the expiration date has passed. I think they should make some changes to those policies, because we all know that food that's marked with an expiration date is good for far longer than an expiration date, just like medication is as well. Tessie Trekkie's with us in chat. Welcome aboard. Says they made a sweet amount of cash in uni painting war hamster 40K miniatures for other nerds. I did that a little bit. I did that twice. And I was like, nah, it's not worth it. Like, not worth it. Because people were so picky about stuff. And I was like, no thanks. All right. So we are going to be diving on into Inferno from GMT Games in just a few moments. But first, I think it's time for a brief intermission.
It's intermission time, folks. Time out for a delicious snack in our sparkling refreshment building. Every item a fresh, appetizing taste treat.
Try our delicious pizza. It's ready and piping hot at the Refreshment Center now. Hungry, but the ordinary things don't seem to appeal? Then try one of our frozen delicacies. They're taste treats that hit the spot, refreshing and cooling without being too filling, satisfying without being too rich. Give yourself and the whole gang a taste dividend. Select the frozen treat that pleases you.
Change of pace. Falstaff, man-size pleasure. Falstaff is always brewed with extra care for the finest beer possible, even to cascading every brew over the Falstaff chilling tower, instantly icing down each brew to protect Falstaff's premium quality taste every step of the way, until it's safely kept in and you're ready to enjoy it. Ah, this is the one. Taste to satisfy your man-sized thirst, yet light enough to leave room for more. Falstaff, unmistakably America's premium quality beer.
Hello, grocery store? Send me some Wilkins instant coffee. How instant can you get?
Pretend there's trouble for G.I. Joe. You gotta get out, your G.I. Joe. Copter's waiting, time to go. Gotta rescue G.I. Joe. Better move out, your G.I. Joe. Mission accomplished, G.I. Joe.
G.I. Joe and G.I. Joe Adventure Team Helicopter, each sold separately.
That's the G.I. Joe I remember. With the weird beards and the weird kind of like fro hair on them. Don't leave them in a bathtub because that hair would just fall right on out. Kevin says, G.I. Joe, music by Neil Diamond. Yes, and then we had that Falstaff beer commercial with the secret agent, and the briefcase has one beer in it. One beer. And then it's ended up drank by the female assassin who killed our secret agent to drink that beer. So Double Z1 has got to run. Good to see you. Thank you very much. So Tessie Trekkie's asking, how is the G.I. Joe role-playing game? I have no idea. Not a clue. I will point out, although now Vampire the Masquerade is with Renegade, but when Renegade was first starting to do some role-playing games, I'm trying to remember, they had the one Farlight or something along those lines. Was the first one that came out, and they sent me actually they gave me a review copy at Gen Con, and it was like so half-baked. It didn't feel like it was a completed, play-tested role-playing game. So hopefully they've improved on their RPG bona fides, or as some people say, bona fides, since then. But no, I have absolutely no idea how the G.I. Joe RPG is. I got the G.I. Joe deck building game and loaned it to somebody who was going to do a review, and I have not gotten it back. And it's been a while. So now that I remember it, I should reach out and get that back. So I know it'll be a pretty stale review, but when I get around to doing it. But what can I tell you? All right, so tonight I am going to be unboxing and taking a first look at Inferno from GMT Games. It's designed by Enrico Acerbe and Volko Ruhnke, with artwork and graphics provided by Robert Altbauer and Matthew Wallhead. This game is for 1 or 2 players, ages 14 and up, plays in around 3 or 4 hours, does carry an MSRP of $95. So let's swing on over to the other camera, because here I've got Inferno. So before we dive on in, a few things I do want to mention. I guess I might as well take the shrink wrap off, try to get rid of some of the glare. Although the box does not have a matte finish to it. But do want to point out that the fine folks over at GMT Games were kind enough to send along this review copy, but neither I nor anyone else affiliated with the gaming gang has received any other sort of compensation for me to share this coverage with you. And these days, I say it all the time, it's important that you know that. I know some people are curious, well, why is that important? Well, it means no one's paying me to push these products on you. So the Madman says their dad drank Falstaff when he was in high school. I think when the Madman was in high school. Even then, it certainly didn't taste like the finest beer ever. No. I always thought that Falstaff was kind of like right there with like Milwaukee's Best. So, which is pretty god-awful. So, John Miscola says the G.I. Joe tabletop role-playing game is great. Seriously. All right, so let's take a look at the back here. I'm not going to read everything from the back, but we'll get an idea of it. You thirsted for blood. Now drink your fill. Dante. Tuscany, 1259. Crafts, trade, and finance have built the wealth of Italy's urban families up to that of the landed lords. But rivalries within and among their cities harden into conflict between 2 great parties. The Ghibellines align with the Hohenstaufen dynasty, clinging to rule in Italy, while Guelphs back the Pope as challenger to imperial authority. Yes, and that is how those are pronounced. So Tessie Trekkie asks, is the product sponsorship disclosure thing part of the YouTube terms of service? No. I do believe the only time you have to say anything is if you are being paid to promote a product. So if you have a stream or a show or something like that, where you have like, when people say, oh, we're sponsored by Squaresoft or whatever, Squarespace, that's it. Get that all the time, right? Squarespace. they have to say, even if their show is not about websites, they have to say that they have product placement in it. But I don't, because I'm not getting paid. Nobody pays me to do this. So I do not have to do any sort of disclosure. I just like to share that with you so you know. Because, Tessie Tranky says, or Shark VPN. Actually, I don't see too many ads for that. Stamps.com, that's one. That's another one you see all the time. But what I was going to say is there are outlets out there who have saved their disclaimers to the end of their videos, sometimes after their credits roll. So I think nowadays you have to indicate to YouTube that it is something that's without, paid sponsorship or product placement, what have you. And then YouTube will actually show a little tab that pops out saying, paid sponsorship or whatever. Because, like I said, I know for a fact, because I had seen it for a couple of the shiftier outlets out there covering tabletop gaming, where you could tell that all their reviews were just a shtick. They were an advertisement. There was actually no critical thought that went into the reviews. They might as well have been just sitting there reading, sell sheet information and playing off that that's their review. And then at the end of their videos, they would have just a real quick disclaimer talking about that, it was paid product placement. So when I do a paid Kickstarter preview, which I do every once in a while, I always indicate that, yes, it is a paid video. YouTube will indicate that, yes, I had received payment to do that video. All right. Anyway, Inferno, the third volume in Volko Ruhnke's Levy campaign series, fires up the cauldron of 13th century Tuscan warfare, factional conflict fueled by the gold florins and teeming populations of up-and-coming cities. Expert Italian designer Enrico Acerbi brings the age to life within Volko's accessible medieval operational system. Gathering supplies may be less the challenge here than sudden treachery of rebel towns along key roads. Nice. Italy's plundering Bavarian horsemen, famed elite crossbowmen, and distinctive Pavlasari shield bearers are just a few of this volume's unique inhabitants. Muster, mount up, and fight out whose blood will make the Arbia run red. Fight out? Wouldn't it be find out? I don't know. Maybe not. Sweet. All right. Should mention, this is actually a pretty hefty box. So I am going to guess, like most of the Levy and campaign releases, we've got a bunch of discs and cylinders and things like that. So we've got our rules of play. I guess GMT is now calling their playbooks background books, because I noticed the Twilight Struggle Red Sea conflict in the Horn of Africa had a background book. They were calling it a background book. So, all right, let's take a look at the rules here. Looks like going to clock in at about 25 pages in rules, and then we've got our different summaries. So there are two previous releases in the Levy and campaign series, Nevsky and El Moravid. So we've got our introduction here. So it says, Inferno is a board war game about campaigns in 13th century Tuscany between Guelph and Ghibelline factions that culminated in the bloody Battle of Monteperdi on September 4th, 1260. The city-state of Firenze, Florence, leads the Papal Allied Guelph faction against its commercial rival Siena at the head of the imperialist, I believe it is Gabellins, is how it's pronounced. I know it's Guelph. So, there you go. So we've got our general course of play. Looks like we've got a very cool looking board. So it's showing us the different markers. Revolt and treachery. So revolt by card play or ripples of a defeat can switch a stronghold's allegiance. Lords and vassals. Got our forces. I will point out, from my experience, this is, I don't want to say it's overly complex, but it's more complex than the gang that I play with wants to get involved in. So one aspect that is in the Levy campaign favor is that solitaire play is easily achieved. We'll have to take a look at the back of the box, see what the solitaire level is for this. But usually it's like 8 or 9 because they normally have a bot. So we'll find out. So we've got command, battle. There's a battle map that you'll utilize. Siege, Storm, and Sally. Sally Struthers or Sally Field? Hopefully it's Sally Field. Supply, which in the other 2 Levy campaign releases, supply and muster are huge deals. But I guess taking a look at the information on the back of this box, supply isn't as big a deal in this, I guess. So here we've got our scenarios. So we've got an introductory scenario. Oh, wow, looks like we've got 6 scenarios. So we've got some shorter scenarios, and then we have the full-length scenario from 1259 to 1261. And here we've got our setup. And this looks like this is our starting setup for the full campaign right there. Sweet. And then we've got our index on the back here. Okay, so let's take a look at the background book, which should have an example of play, should have designer notes, and the actual history about the game itself. What is this simulating, right? And I say it all the time, and I'm sure people get tired of hearing me say this when I'm looking at GMT games or reviewing GMT games, and that is I always read these books first. I always read these before I take a look at the rule book. I have always found that, for myself at least, it's easier for me to understand the rule book once I've read through these playbooks, or now I guess we're going to call these background books. So it looks like we've got a quick start. That's what it looks like right here, scenario A. So this is going to give us some strategy information about playing that first scenario. And then it's like that's our setup here as well. So we get some strategy notes. Violence. When and how to offer battle. Gluttony. Keeping large armies in the field. This is pretty wild. It says 9 strategy tips for your journey into the heart of the Inferno. And they're sort of like the 7 deadly sins, right? So we've got greed, lust, heresy, treachery, gluttony, violence, and wrath. It's pretty wild. So solitaire. Oh, okay. So it says Inferno includes no solitaire system, but a single player readily can handle both sides. I know a lot of people out there play that way. I don't know. That's too bad. So there's no solitaire bot or solitaire rules. So we get an explanations of play, talking about the different aspects of gameplay. So like call to arms, which is you mustering your armies, the march, supply, siege and storm. I'm sure there's rules about foraging in here as well. Knight's quarter and ransom, treachery, revolt, and bribe. I gotta be honest, I like historical games where there's a little treachery. You can see your allies change sides. Sekigahara from GMT Games simulates that very nicely without getting too complex. I really like that. In fact, I really like Sekigahara. I don't know if it's still in print, but that is a relatively easy war game to learn. All right, so it looks like here we've got historical information. Yep, that's what it looks like. And it's like we've got historical situations via the game board and the game components. It's kind of cool. So it looks like the majority of the page space is devoted to the history. Okay, here it looks like we've got a breakdown of the event cards. So there is a bit of a card-driven aspect to this. War engineers, Army Reserve. All right. And then we have, so I think the cards are broken up into two portions. We'll have to take a look. It's been a while since I've taken a peek at Almoravid. So we've got our development notes. And I thought maybe we'd see a bibliography or recommended reading. Oh yeah, here we go. Yep. In fact, I guess that's what all of this is. Okay. Chronicles of Medieval Italy, Italy in the 13th century. So yes, okay. So this is a variety of references to other books. So nice. And then of course we've got our counters here and our Arts of War list. So each of the factions has events and they also have capabilities. And I believe the cards are broken in two halves. So it looks like we've got some stickers for some cylinders here. And it looks like we have, these are the various different allies, the different armies, and we have 2 copies of each. So we have a full set of spare stickers. So that is very cool. Move that out of the way. All right, so here we've got, so we've got player aids, or actually these are player shields, I think. I think the players put these in front of them to hide information. Here we've got breakdown of the two factions. So we've got quite a few aids here, and then we've got a good number of punch boards. So let's take a look at, yep, that's what it is. So it's a screen, so you can put it up and block your opponent from seeing specific information. So we've got two of those. Then we've got the Ghoul Elf, Lords and Vassals, and the Gilbellin. I'm trying to remember. I think it's like Gibellin. I think that's how it was pronounced. Well, I saw it was pronounced two different ways. I think one of them was Gilbellin and the other was Gilbellin. So these are those Lords and Vassals. We have Revolt and Treachery Summary. And then we have Revolt Tables. And I think these numbers here are their loyalty numbers. So I'll give you a closer look here at this. Flaming Heron says, not arguing with you either way, Jeff. Yeah, you know, I say it all the time. I treat English as if it were a second language. So Italian's certainly not gonna flow too well off my tongue. All right, so we've got our commands. So we've got March, Siege, Storm, Sally, Supply, Forage, Ravage, Sail, Tax, Pass, and Treachery. Got our forces. Types of strongholds. So we have cities, towns, and castles. Battle and Storm. William Arenz is with us in chat. I think this might be a first-time visit. Says, these games are both full of historical information while providing for interesting historical simulations in gameplay. One aspect of conflict simulations I have always loved, at least if they're well designed, is that you get a really good understanding of the challenges that faced different commanders, and games aren't locked into one specific sort of resolution, right? That's why I've always said, like, board games based on the Alamo, to me, don't make sense. Because it's like, okay, the Alamo defenders are going to die. That's basically how it works. There's no getting around that. So we've got our sequence of play. Anyway, welcome aboard, William. Thanks for joining us. All right, let's take a look at some of these punch boards. So these are some of our units here. Also looks like we've got some informational counters as well. So these are dual-sided and nice and thick. And like I said, we've got quite a few of these. So if I remember correctly, these are the armies. These are your army counters. All right, so now we've got more informational tokens. Coin. What did that say? Oh, provisions. I'm like, what is, I'm like, drow? Like, what? This isn't a fantasy game. And I'm like, oh, no, it's a P there. Provisions, cart, ships. Because, of course, you're going to need to feed your troops. Well, I thought it was a punch board. It turns out it's our game board. And this is not going to take up a ton of space. It's actually pretty small, but it's very cool. I'm digging this. Okay, so we've got our different seasons. So this is if if you're playing the various different scenarios, you're going to have so many turns. So we start off in 1259. It could run to 1261. Of course, once again, it's going to be determined by what scenario you are playing. And then we have the board down here. That looks really nice. I like that. I like that quite a lot. And you're not going to take up a ton of space with the board. What you will take up space with are going to be your army boards or your commander, your ally boards, your vassals and that. And those are these. So that's what, here's our battle board. Give you a peek at that. So we got our attacker, our defender, our left, center, and right. So pretty easy there. All right, so it looks as if each of these ties into our cities or towns. So if I remember right, I think these are vassal boards. Cool. We're not going to look at each and every one, but we see the fealty, lordship, command. We get some heraldry there as well. So hopefully the video is nice and clear for you to take a peek at that. All right. But as I mentioned, this box is pretty hefty. As you can see, there's quite a lot in it. So here we've got some cylinders. We've got some various like pie-shaped wooden pieces in here. Looks like we've got some rectangles as well. And the cylinders are going to get those stickers. So the two faction colors are orange and purple. We've got some cards. In fact, we've got 4 decks of cards. We've got an insert. GMT always puts together a cool insert. Not just a bland, empty box bottom. Okay, so we've got command cards for each of the factions. We've got Arts of War for each of the factions as well. So let's open these up. Once again, we're not going to take a look at all of them. Well, we'll get an idea what we're looking at here. And then we got 6 dice, 3 in each of the colors. So we've got the orange and we've got, yeah, it's purple-ish. It's a little more blue than purple, but it's still purple. Okay. All right, almost got it here. Looks like the cardstock is decent. Tell you in a second. All right, let's take a look at the command cards here. Try to get these out of the way so we don't have any problems with the autofocus. Solid. I'd say cardstock's pretty solid here. They do not have a linen finish, in case you're curious. I say it all the time. Sleeve your cards. I mean, it doesn't matter if you're not playing a game a ton. Sleeve your cards anyway, because there's nothing worse than having a card get damaged in a game. All right, so these command cards are going to show the various different vassals, the various different allies. There we got some treachery cards. Damn you, Walter von Astenberg, and your treachery. So, and depending on the size of the town or city, will depend on how many cards it's got. So, like cities have 3, Towns have 2, and I think castles only have 1. Then we have cards to pass. So it's going to be pretty much the same thing here. Nice. More treachery cards and passing. Now, the Arts of War are where we've got the events and the capabilities. So, as you can see, the card is broken into 2 parts, like I had mentioned previously. So up here is the event. So the event would be an ambush. And then here it's a capability. So memory serves me correctly, you can only use it for one or the other. Now, I could be wrong. Like I said, it's been a long time since I've taken a peek at either of the Levy and campaign titles that are already out. Pope at Bay. Set aside 1 treachery to shift any 2 Ghoul Elf cylinders or service 1 calendar box, or Orvieto by 3. A better paid death. War loans. So, kind of cool. And I think, if memory serves, I think to play the event, you have to have those factions in play for you. I'll have to dig through the rules again. Because like some of them say all, right? So it doesn't matter. You can, any of them, you can play that. But like here, doctors. So like I said, I think that's what this means. Could be, I could be absolutely wrong. So we've got that. And then we've got the Arts of War here, another ambush, sudden clash. And then we have trebuchets, swamp, closed gates, foreign help. Says shift Guido or Orvieto service 2 boxes, or if desired, set aside 1 treachery from Ghoul Elf decks. From Ghoul Elf deck to shift their cylinders left to current Levy. All right. So just giving you an idea of these various different cards here. Sweet. All right. So we've got the 2 Arts of War decks, as well as the 2 command decks for each faction. We have our 6 dice. Got a bunch of wooden markers. Some are cylinders, some are rectangles, some are like pie-shaped triangles. Pie slice, I guess I'll say. We have all of the vassal boards, as well as the battle board. I think these are called vassal boards. Might as well put our cool game board on top. Really do like this. I like the art. I like the graphic design on this. So we've got our 2 player aids. We've got our revolt and treachery tables. We have our lords and vassals for each faction. We've got our 2 shields. 3 punch boards with counters and tokens. Our sticker sheet. Our cool background book, which, as I mentioned before, I'll be reading before I even take a peek at the rules. And that is what we find when we take everything outside the box from Inferno, from GMT Games. This is volume 3 in the Levy and Campaign series. It is available now from GMT Games. It's for 1 or 2 players, although we did see that it does not have solitaire rules per se. It is for ages 14 and up, plays in 3 or 4 hours, and does carry an MSRP of $95. Sweet. Looks very, very interesting. Once again, probably a little more complex than I can get my gang to the table for, which sucks. But, you know, I understand. I understand where they come from because we don't get an opportunity to game too often. So, thank you. William has provided a super chat. Said they put the cylinders in small containers and store them under the insert sections. They also attach a plastic sheet to the counterboard. Cool. I happen to store things under the insert all the time. So nice. And thank you very much for the super chat. Or as I like to say, super chat. That didn't really sound like supercar. Which is funny. I never watched Supercar. I don't even think I was alive when Supercar was on. So just for some reason, I know the opening to it. Supercar. All righty then. So Inferno. Hopefully, I will have a review of this in the not too distant English, Jeff. See, I told you. I treat English as if it's a second language. In the not too distant future, yeah. Couldn't get the word distant out. All righty. Anyway, don't forget all next week, it is Pathfinder Kingmaker Week here on the Gaming Gang Dispatch. We are going to dive into a ton of Pathfinder Kingmaker content. We've got flip mats, we've got pawn boxes, we've got loads and loads of goodies. We've got the character option book. We've got the bestiary for 5e. So we are going to be jumping on into this. On Monday's show, we will take a look at the core book, which is mighty, mighty thick. Didn't we see it clock in at around 630 as far as page-wise? I think that's what it was. I think it was like 628, and then we had a couple of pages of advertising in it. So we're going to dive into this. We'll probably look at a couple of flip mats as well. So that is going to be all next week on the Dispatch. And of course, the latest in tabletop gaming news as well. Should also mention that my friends over at Arc Dream Publishing sent along Conspiracy. So this is supposed to be the original Delta Green book. And it is just updated and revamped for the modern edition of Delta Green. So I'm thinking week after next, we might be doing a horror RPG week, because not only do I have that, I should probably have the Conspiracy, I shouldn't say Conspiracy, the Convergence adventure, which is actually the first Delta Green adventure that's now been updated for modern Delta Green. And Rivers of London from Chaosium Inc., as well as Nameless Horrors from Chaosium Inc. So I think week after next, we are going to be doing a horror role-playing game week. So stay tuned for that. All righty then. That is it for this time out. Of course, if you like the video, by all means, please give it a quick thumbs up. Subscribe to the Gaming Gang channel if you haven't already. And of course, if you do subscribe, come on, there we go. It's like, come on. If you do subscribe, ding that bell, because it'll not only let you know when the Dispatch streams live Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday evenings right here on YouTube. It'll also inform you when I upload other original videos, such as this coming weekend's Why You Should Play Traveler, as well as my recent review of Twilight Struggle, Red Sea, Conflict in the Horn of Africa from GMT Games. And of course, when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit thegaminggang.com for all latest in tabletop gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more that you won't find here on the YouTube channel. Enjoy the rest of your morning, afternoon, evening, whatever time of day it is in your neck of the woods. Have a great rest of the week and weekend. And of course, those of you who watch live, thank you very much. Always appreciate that. If you watched live and took part in chat, a bigger tip of the cap, because you're not only keeping me company, you're keeping each other company as I babble on. But of course, I know a lot of people out there, you don't have an opportunity to watch live. Doesn't matter if you're watching live or on Memorex. Really do appreciate you taking time out to watch any of the videos here on the Gaming Gang channel. All right, I will be back on Monday. Here's hoping each and every one of you gets to enjoy plenty of great gaming with your gang.
Oh, hey, you're still here. That's okay. You don't have to leave just yet. In fact, why don't you subscribe to the Gaming Gang channel right here, or take a peek at the latest live stream, or even find out what YouTube recommends you check out from the channel. And of course, I'm Jeff McAleer. Thanks again for watching.